It's another edition of the Loaded Radio podcast, and it's great to be here this week. Hey, I'm Scott Penfold. What's going on? A great one this week, man. I mean, like, I try and bring a great one every week, but this one is going to be just, well, it's going to be heavy. It's going to be brutal, okay? I'm going to be speaking one-on-one with the one and only Jack Owen from 6 Feet Under. They've got the new album, Killing for Revenge, which just dropped on May the 10th. Through Metal Blade Records, so we're going to be getting into that. And I think it's so cool that Jack Owen is not only back working with Chris Barnes, who of course he worked with in Cannibal Corpse previously, but now Jack has actually become a full-fledged, big-time, writer, contributor to the band. He's not just there, strumming chords, playing guitar. Jack is a very, very important part of 6 Feet Under. So of course we're going to be talking about the new album. We're going to be talking about old Cannibal Corpse stuff because, hey, we have to. It's Cannibal Corpse, dude. We're going to talk death metal. We're going to talk about everything we can with the one and only Jack Owen. So stick around for that. First off, though, do got to mention, hey, check out loadedradio.com for all your hard rock and metal news. A 24-hour live radio station featuring live DJs and tons of great programming for you. Oh, and of course, nonstop hard rock and metal 24 hours a day. 7 days a week. And as well, you can get past episodes of this very podcast and the free Loaded Radio app. Download that at loadedradio.com or wherever you get your apps, okay? All right, let's get down to the podcast, though. Enough of that. And here he is. He is the guitar player from, well, he's previously played with Cannibal Corpse, Deicide. This guy is death metal royalty. I'm talking about Jack Owen, and he is from the band 6 Feet Under. They have the new album, Killing for Revenge. It dropped on May 10th. Jack, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us on the podcast this week.
Cool.
6 Feet Under's new album, Killing for Revenge. What are you most excited about for fans to hear on this record?
Oh, just to get the reaction of the fans to see what they think about the whole thing. We've just done a couple singles so far, and it's positive reaction. So just want to hear what people think about the whole thing.
You know what? I got to admit, as a fan myself, man, because I remember the last time I spoke to you, I guess it would have been for the last album cycle. And there is a significant change in this album. I'm not saying, it sounds like a completely different band, but Chris sounds better. The writing is better. It's the brutality is still there, but it's, again, I'm going to use the word better. What happened there? What exactly happened?
Yeah, it's night and day from the last album.
Yeah.
I didn't have the writing tools I needed back then. I didn't have a drum writing program. I didn't have a multi-track. I think I just used drum loops and like YouTube drum tracks to get my ideas over to Chris.
Yeah.
But now I have a drum writing program called Easy Drummer. Like every time you have an idea, you can just write the drums for it and you've got a song. And I have a riff archive if I'm ever stuck. So I have everything I need right now, and it came out exactly the way I wanted it on this one.
Did you find that the actual writing style, when it came to not just the music, but I'm even guessing Chris's lyrics, do you find that there was a significant change there this time around as well?
Yeah, I started writing lyrics for it, and Chris said, just go ahead and write as many as you can. So I did. So I wrote about 90% of the lyrics.
Oh, cool, man.
I did a scratch vocal track on my home demos, and I just sang all low, and he asked what kind of style he should sing in, and I said, dude, just everything all low, like Autopsy. So he did, and it came out great. I love it. It's been mentioned that he quit smoking weed, and he doesn't even drink alcohol now, so I'm sure that helps a little bit.
Briefly touching on that, what really led to that for Chris? Was it just that he'd had enough, or like what?
I don't think it was out of anger. It was just like a life change, maybe the age that he's at. I've slowed down in my drinking, thankfully, and just a life change.
What is where do you draw your inspiration from writing? Obviously, it's kind of a stupid question. Looking at who you've played with, Corpse, Deicide, now with 6 Feet Under, where do you pull your inspiration for lyrical content from?
Oh, lyrical. I think we've all become like horror fiction writers at this point. If
sure.
You've been doing it this long, and like back in the day, you had to dig around for books and things, but now there's like 3 or 4 networks where you can just turn it on and it's true crime all day.
It really is, isn't it?
Yep. I mean, if I don't draw like a whole story from a program, all I really need is a phrase, and I take that and I write a song around that. And that's how I've been doing it lately.
Just turn on Discovery ID and you got yourself some songs right there.
Sure. Yep. ID, Oxygen, HLN, Forensic Files is great.
There you go. And you know what's the thing too is I've been interviewing a lot of death metal bands lately, and they've been saying the same thing, that that's really pulling a lot of influence from this kind of programming and this kind of stuff, which I think is it's a great I guess it's a great tool. Getting back to I guess into the album, let's talk about Know Nothing Ain't Great. I mean, that one just throws you into the abyss right away, man. Pretty ferocious. Was that the deliberate choice for the opener?
Yeah, I kind of sequenced the album in order of like how I like the tracks.
Yeah.
So that was leading me off, and we just picked 3, and that was it's not like thrashy and blasty. It's more of a mid pace, if you want to call it that, and not really the lyrical content that wasn't important. It was like the driving beat that's in there that we wanted to grab people with.
Now, where did the name Killing for Revenge come from for this project?
Yeah, Chris came up with that after all the lyrics were done, and he was reading my lyrics.
Yeah.
And he was like, man, there's a lot of like killing, like the human race, and, you know, getting rid of a lot of people at once. And I'm like, killing for revenge. And I'm like, yeah, I like it. And I never really thought of it as like, man, I could kill for some revenge. I thought it was like, you know, the literal meaning, killing for revenge. Right. And I was like, hey, sounds like screaming for vengeance. So yeah, perfect.
You'd mentioned earlier too, Abby, how it was kind of like working across the country with each other, contributing individually. How did you find this approach really impacted the creative process for the album?
Oh, I wrote all the music and most of the lyrics, and I don't know if I made it a little simpler because we record remotely and the guys have to learn the songs, you know, where they're at before they record them.
Yeah.
But either way, the musicians that we have, it's like they can play anything. So
yeah.
As far as writing, hopefully they like it and hopefully fans like it. I like it. It's exactly what I would probably write in like 1995 or so.
Back to Corpse, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just reading on the press release, and now it mentions nightmare-inducing imagery, courtesy of the lyrics that you guys were put together. What are some of the themes that are explored within the album? Obviously, revenge being one of them. But what are some of the themes that are looked at?
Yeah, we've got Accomplice to Evil Deeds, which was in a dream I had. It was Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse, and he was killing people in a shack in the woods, and I was his accomplice. So I just woke up and wrote that real quick. Ascension was when I re-listened to Macbeth by Shakespeare, and I was like, damn, this is violent. a lot of blood and revenge and beheadings, so that made sense.
I find it funny that you actually wrote a song, that not really mentions Corpse Grinder, but was sort of, he was part of it in that process in some way. I find that kind of funny. Was it obviously just a random dream you can't explain, or is there like a reason for that, you think?
Maybe it's all the true crime TV shows, but maybe I miss Corpse Grinder. He's a good guy, and I keep in touch with all those guys.
That's good to hear too, because I'm gonna say this. I might get in trouble for saying this from some people, but I loved when you were in Corpse, man. I mean, that was really my favorite lineup of the band. I thought it was killer. Of course, I love Chris's stuff. I mean, I love those first few albums, but when you were there with Alex and Paul, of course, to me, that's Corpse, and I really do miss that era.
Yep, good times and great oldies.
Great old. We're calling them oldies now, man. I can't believe it.
I know. When I heard Sweet Home Alabama on classic rock, I was like, oh no, I'm old.
Speaking of that, you guys pulled out a cover of Hair of the Dog on this album. Where did that come from? Speaking of oldies.
Oh, we always like a little extra, and Chris chose that, and I was like, cool, I like that song, and I demoed it out real quick, and instead of making it heavy, I just did like traditional softer guitars and the regular drums, and it's really like karaoke with Chris singing.
Really, essentially, is that it? I guess looking back, your relationship with Chris has been so many years, and working with him in Cannibal Corpse, and essentially, is 6 Feet Under today? Is it a duo with a couple of other guys who are just told what to do, kind of a deal? Is that what 6 Feet Under is today?
Yeah, I hope not. I mean, Jeff, the bass player, has freedom to do anything he wants with the basic structures that I give him, and Ray writes his own leads, and I make sure I give him like most of the spots on the album to do guitar solos. And Marco, the drummer, I write the drums on the demos, but they're nothing compared to what he actually ends up playing. So
right.
Yeah, right. I know when we go on the road, it's like everybody gets along, we're like brothers, and everything's cool.
That's very cool. Would you say it's a significant difference than it was, say, on the road, going back to like the era of like the bleeding and going back to that kind of stuff? Is it a whole different vibe these days?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, everybody got along, but I was the guy who brought a bike on the tour and just hauled ass as soon as the bus parked. Not because I hated everybody, but it was because the clubs were shitholes and there's a lot more to do and see in town.
Tell me about producing. Tell me about taking on that massive responsibility as well.
Yeah, it's really just the title, I guess. I mean,
really?
I had to look up the definition on Google.
Did you?
It's really just like approving everything step by step, especially the mix. So, and everybody was involved in approving the mix. So, when you're as involved as I was with writing the music and a lot of the lyrics, and when we get the drums, we do a little tweaking to those in the studio. Not tweaking, but just tones. So I guess it was logical. I was the most involved. This is all my fault, basically.
It's okay. So it's all Jack Owen. We can say it's all Jack's fault on this.
Yeah. If you don't like it, it's my fault.
there you go, man. I do want to talk about you, Jack Owen, for a bit, man. But I mean, looking at your extensive career, man, I mean, God, of course, Cannibal Corpse, Deicide. What are some of the biggest lessons you've learned as being a musician and a songwriter in the era that is death metal? Essentially, you were a big part in forming this genre. What are some things that you've taken away from that?
It's hard to say. Last interview, it was like, do you think there's been too many bands coming and going over the years? And I'm like, nope. The more bands, the better. Yeah. Because, I'm the same way. I'm listening to everything that comes out and the classics that I like. And I'm grabbing records from the thrift store, and everybody has a huge appetite. So no, never too many bands. I mean, lessons, communication. I think back when Chris split with Cannibal, if we had more communication, we could have worked with them and stuck it out for a longer time, I think.
Yeah, do you think that really, it was essentially just a communication breakdown that was left of that split?
Yeah, we were still kids, and we were like, fuck you, no, fuck you, dude. That type of thing. I'm sure we could have said, hey, let me work with you on these lyrics and the patterns, and that's the way he is now. He'd be like, of course.
It's funny. I interviewed Alex Webster a few months ago, and I mean, he has no hard feelings against you guys, obviously, or with. I mean, he thinks that you guys are great. What you guys are doing as well, and it led me to ask him the question, the same thing I'm going to ask you. And I'm sure fans give you this all the time, and I'm really sorry about having to ask, but I got to do it for the fans. Do you see these two bands ever touring together, doing something together at any time?
I mean, I get along with everybody, but the logistics are just like, I don't know. I would.
Yeah, you would?
Yeah, like going back to when we split with Chris, it was like, short answer, yeah, I would do it. I'm the guy who likes to keep the machine going until it breaks.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Expanding on that a little bit, then you would be open to the fact of, hey, you know what, like a co-headlining tour, or maybe like just these two bands doing some dates together. Like you'd be like, yeah, let's do it, bring it on.
Yeah, on paper it would be like, okay, 6 Feet Under set, and then an overlapping Cannibal set, and then the Corpse Grinder set.
That would be so. Oh, that would be a death metal fan's dream. Like that's porn. Like like a death metal fan. You know what I mean? If that were to happen, do you think Chris and George would be able to make that happen?
Yeah, they totally get along.
They do, eh? Okay, yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about you a bit more of your stuff, man. I mean, tell me about your time in Deicide. How did you find working with Glenn Benton?
Our personalities don't really mesh very well. He's outgoing and I'm more of an introvert. Like, I think I said that on our last interview.
Yeah.
But like I said, I stuck it out for as long as I could, and then there was writing disputes, and the touring kind of dried up, and I was just having to get away at the end there.
Were you already open to returning to working with Chris at the time of walking away from Deicide, or was it just like, I'm done, I'm leaving?
I'm done, and I'll find something else to do.
Yeah, understood. Again, of course, death metal being a big part of who you are and what you're known for, Jack. Are there any other kind of musical genres that you enjoy, or you listen to, or that you love?
Yeah, that's funny. I was just going through a stack of vinyl that I got from the thrift store.
Yeah.
So we got Simon and Garfunkel, Andre Segovia live. We got Merle Haggard. And then we got Goat Whore. I swear, someday my MP3 player is just going to explode.
That is an eclectic playlist, my friend.
I know. It'll just go from like Autopsy to 60s doo-wop, and it's just so much shit. I have a lot of classical and spoken word and a classic country in there.
Do you still like going out to live shows? I'm not just talking metal shows either, but do you still like going out and seeing live shows played?
Sure, yeah, anything.
Even like extreme death metal bands, you still like going out and checking them out too and stuff?
Yeah. There's always newer bands that are killer that are coming out. Street Tombs and Necrot are coming around. I got to see that one. And if there's a cool blues show like Eric Gales is coming, he's amazing. I'd like to see that. Yeah, anything really.
I know you'd mentioned that somebody in a previous interview had asked you this, but I guess in my way of asking, what are your thoughts on the current state of death metal? Do you think do you think it's been watered down, or do you still think it's badass? Like, what do you think?
I think it's really strong.
You do, right?
You listen to bands like Cattle Decapitation or Ingested, and they have that modern production. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it's big. People love it. And then you have bands like Necrot or Street Tombs or Blazar, and they have caveman production, for lack of a better term. Maybe they're still analog.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, everybody's got a huge appetite. Like if I do it, then everybody has to be doing it.
What are your thoughts on deathcore? Are you a fan of any deathcore stuff?
Name a deathcore band.
Let's say you talk about Lorna Shore is the big deathcore band right now, of course.
Right. Yeah, I like the aggression of it.
Yeah.
Glenn Benton's not gonna like it because they might look like Weezer.
Did you read about that? Did you see that?
Yeah. Oh boy.
I had read about that the other day in the media, and I thought, you know what, that sounds kind of like a Glenn Benton thing to say, but it also did sort of harken back to something that Chris kind of mentioned a couple of years ago when he was talking about modern death metal. Do you think his opinions changed since then?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He sends bands over to me to check out, like Brat and Antichrist Siege Machine. I'm like, damn, this is heavy.
Chris is more into more modern day death metal today than you'd say.
Oh, sure. Yeah, he's totally into the classics like Motorhead and Maiden, and he's up on what's coming out on our label and tons of other labels.
Now, do you think Chris gets a bad rap in the press? Do you think he does, or do you think he did for a while there?
The press is fine. It's usually the trolls who have to comment. And, the last album, we get bad reviews. That's disappointing, but fine. But this one, it seems like they're having to make stuff up to hate the album.
Right. Gotcha. No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a very talented musician. I mean, that goes without saying. But what are some of your other creative outlets that you enjoy outside of music?
Oh, well, I have a cat rescue, so that's a lot of work.
Oh, I can imagine. Really?
Yeah, I
Huh.
just got a new one that rolled up to our house, and he was bitten by something. He had a huge neck wound.
Oh, that's gnarly, man. Wow.
So we had to take him to the vet, and the vet calls me, and he's like, "Okay, I handled the wound, but this cat has absolutely no teeth."
Oh, wow. Really?
I'm like, "What the hell?" So he's
Wow.
like a big project, but to make sure he doesn't have rabies and to feed him only bush.
Right. Feed him only bush.
Yeah.
How long you been doing this for, Jack?
Oh boy, everywhere we move, there's animals that just find us. So since oh wow, 90s, I guess.
It's the 90s. How many pets do you own yourself?
It's an obscene number. I might not want to say it right now.
Oh, really? Okay. Kind of answers the question there, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, they might be hard to count, actually.
Do you like getting out? Do you like getting active? Like, are you like what do you like to do just to get out there and just
Oh.
enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I do ride my mountain bike a lot, but I'm more of a practical rider. I
Mhm.
have to be going somewhere and getting something and coming back, and then the exercise is just incidental.
Really? Yeah.
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 So I do that, and I do a lot of upselling online to make extra money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's just like finding retail goods at deep discounts or for free and just throwing them online.
Oh, a lot of people are doing that these days, and they seem to be doing pretty well with it too. I see. Eh?
Yeah, you end up with like a buying base after a while, and it's like get your stuff and send them a message, and they buy it all. I'm like, okay, cool.
Have you ever sold your gear that way? Any of your old gear?
I have gotten rid of a couple of guitars. Yeah.
Really? Wow. I can imagine they would have got a pretty penny being who you are.
I don't think that was a factor, but
No,
I
really,
was
eh?
I was in a money pit of a house. So
Oh, yeah.
when I was in Florida, I'm in Illinois now, and we figured everything out.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Now, where's Chris based out of? Is he in Florida or?
He is in Seattle, and so is Marco, the drummer, too.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Now, obviously, we do have modern technology and, writing albums. People can write albums all around the world. But do you find it doesn't have that sort of that old school way? Like, I mean, going back to like 88, 89, when it was like just the five of you sitting in a room. Do you kind of miss those days?
Yeah, that would be cool because you never know what's going to come out.
Yeah.
Especially if everybody's writing. That's the way it was in the early Cannibal days. Everybody had riffs, and we just would put songs together in like a couple days.
Yeah.
Now it's like somebody take the helm. Because I'm in Illinois, Ray is in Jersey, Jeff is in San Jose, and like I said, Chris and Marco are in Seattle.
Right.
So recording remotely and mixing remotely and releasing remotely, and I have no remotely idea of what's going on.
I like how we sort of brought up those early days of Cannibal. I'm so obsessed with those early days of death metal myself. I mean, bands like Possessed, of course. I mean, the stuff that Chuck was doing over there in Florida. And you guys being a massive part of that, out of Buffalo. What was death metal like back then, man? What was that scene like?
Yeah, it was, you didn't know what was happening until it hit you. It was, no internet. So I don't know if you remember the Day of Death show in Buffalo. It was like 1990, and there were like 20 killer bands from all over the world playing Buffalo. And it was just like everybody got along, and everybody sold merch and traded tapes and traded CDs, and it was a cool. Like, they had to work for it. Immolation has said that you had to work for your music back then. Write to somebody and wait for a tape.
Tape trading was the big thing back then too, Jack? Like,
Yeah.
And there's conversations still to this day. I've gotten in heated arguments with people about, and it's really, I think, an unanswerable question. But who was the first death metal band? Is it Possessed? Is it Cannibal Corpse? Is it Death? I mean, is it Executioner before they were? In your opinion, of course, you came from Corpse. Where did death metal come from for you?
I would say, man, I hadn't listened to Autopsy yet. So we have to go with like Exodus and Death. We were listening to Death. We hadn't found Possessed yet.
Okay.
But everything stems from like Venom, and Venom comes from Motorhead. So
Essentially, sure.
that comes from Sabbath. And who influenced Sabbath? Probably Cream. So
Yeah. Well, Cream was the initial power trio.
yeah.
And I mean, if you listen to Sabbath today, people would call it stoner metal. I mean, if you think about it, but I mean, everything sort of stemmed from Sabbath, which I mean, I think is pretty much why they top every heavy metal list out there. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, it's got yeah, everything's got to come from somewhere. Maybe you got to go all the way back to Robert Johnson selling his soul at the crossroads.
hey, you know what? Yeah, pretty much, right? It all goes back somewhere.
Yeah, without that, there's no Rolling Stones and Beatles and Chuck Berry and I don't know.
Do you have any words for or advice for aspiring death metal guitarists or musicians in 2024?
Oh, just play a lot, practice a lot, keep your speed up. If you have any ideas and you can't lay them down, just hum them into your phone. And it's worth it to invest in a drum writing program and any kind of multi-track recorder.
When it comes to actually album covers, you guys, obviously with Corpse and with 6 Feet, how important are the album covers today when it comes to death metal?
Yeah, we've always been like that. Back to the first album, we wanted to have like the total package. Like, here's the art, here's the title, open it up, here is the lyric sheet. Before you even listen to the music. Yeah, listen, you're just accosted before you even listen to the music.
Totally, man. You know, I really miss grabbing an album. I remember I got eaten back to life, man. And I remember bringing it home and like opening that up and just experiencing the album, dropping the needle, opening and just studying the album, listening to it. Like, I really miss those days where now it's just you click a button on your phone and you're listening to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I would go to the record store and I still remember it was like buy Motorhead or buy Iron Maiden based on the cover. And I was like, I'm going Iron Maiden. And then it was just downhill from there into Venom and Slayer and everything.
With the new album dropping, what's the plans for 6 Feet Under? What are you guys going to be doing?
I have the next album written, like everybody says that, but I do. And
no, you're kidding me. Are you serious? Yeah. Really?
I have like albums of material written.
That's awesome.
We want to tour and we don't have anything confirmed. We're starting with like the end of the year, but we've got to have something before that. So once we get some numbers on the album, maybe we'll pick up something before that.
Yeah, we miss you. We really do miss you, man. Thank you so much, Jack. Your time is so appreciated, my friend. And I hope to see you soon. When you come to town, I'll definitely come up and say hello. And
Awesome. Thank you.
That's Jack Owen from 6 Feet Under. Always great talking to Jack, man. Just an absolutely awesome guy. And the new album is called Killing for Revenge by 6 Feet Under. It dropped on May 10th via Metal Blade Records. It's cool, man. It's brutal. If you love extreme metal, if you love death metal, if you love it brutal as hell and heavy, well, it's definitely an album that if you haven't checked out yet, you're certainly going to want to, okay? Check out loadradio.com. Don't forget to do that to keep up to date with all of us, what we're doing, all the stuff that we do, okay? And another new podcast coming up for you next week, I promise, okay? Should be a big one, too. It's got, who have I got lined up for us here? Let's see, we got a Drowning Pool coming up soon. We got actually, you know what? I'm not supposed to announce, not supposed to reveal too much of that, but, well, there you go. I dropped one of them. It's Scott Penfold from Loader Radio, and we'll talk to you again next week right here on the Loader Radio Podcast.